Bali trip was supposed to be my brother's greatest achievement. That's what he called it, an achievement. Like planning a destination wedding was something that deserved a trophy. I remember laughing when he first told me back in March, standing in my kitchen in Portland while I was trying to eat lunch before my next shift. Bali, I said, you're serious? He was completely serious. My brother has always operated on a frequency I can't quite tune into. He's the kind of person who buys lottery tickets every week and genuinely believes he's going to win. He met his fiancée, Simone, at a rooftop bar in Austin 14 months before this story begins. By month 3, they were talking about rings. By month 6, my mother was calling me every Sunday to tell me Simone was the one, as if she'd personally vetted her. By month 10, the Bali wedding was locked in, 40 guests, a private villa resort in Ubud. 7 days. And somehow, in the chaos of my brother's dreaming, my name ended up on a document I never signed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm a nurse practitioner. I work 12-hour shifts at a level 2 trauma center, and my days off are not really days off. They're recovery days, admin days, the days I batch cook meals and pay bills and try to remember what it felt like to sleep past 7. I mentioned this not to complain but to explain why I was not available to manage my family's financial chaos from 3 time zones away. I had made this clear. Repeatedly. Politely at first, then firmly, then with the kind of exhausted bluntness that only comes after years of being the family's de facto problem solver. I was 31 when this happened. I had a studio apartment I was proud of, a savings account I had built from zero after paying off my student loans, and a credit score of 791 that I had protected like a second job. I had no debt. I had 3 months of emergency fund. I had, finally, after years of watching my family treat money like it was a suggestion, built something stable for myself. My parents are not bad people. I want to say that because it matters. They are warm, loud, disorganized, and chronically over-optimistic about their own finances. My father has started and shuttered 4 small businesses since I was in high school. My mother has a talent for spending that outpaces her talent for earning. They own a house in Phoenix that has been refinanced twice, and they carry the kind of low-level financial anxiety that they've learned to ignore by simply not looking at their bank statements. My brother Cole is 28. He inherited their optimism without inheriting their consequences, because when everything's got bad, I was the one who got the call. The flat tire at midnight, the overdraft fee, the month they couldn't make the mortgage. I had wired money from my savings account 4 times in the past 6 years. Each time I told myself it was the last. Each time I believed it. So when Cole announced the Bali wedding, I gave him my honest assessment. I told him I couldn't afford the trip, between flights, the resort package, and taking unpaid days off work. I was looking at close to $5,000. I told him I loved him, and I would celebrate with him when he got home. He seemed to understand. He said he got it. He hugged me at Christmas and said no hard feelings. What he did not tell me was that the conversation had already happened without me. The wedding was the last week of June. I was in Portland, working. I had sent Cole and Simone a card and the gift, a nice one, a stand mixer they put on their registry, and I'd made peace with missing it. On the Thursday before the ceremony, I worked a 10-hour shift, came home, ate leftover soup, and fell asleep before 9. My phone was on silent. I had an early shift the next morning. I woke up at 2047 a.m. to my phone buzzing against the nightstand in that frantic, continuous way that means something is wrong. I have a rule about middle-of-the-night calls. I used to let them go to voicemail because the anxiety of imagining the worst was better than the reality. But after a patient coded on me for the first time, after I learned what it actually felt like when the worst happened, I stopped being precious about it. I just answered. I counted the notifications before I unlocked the screen. 19 missed calls, 11 voicemails, 43 text messages. My father had called 8 times, my mother 6, Cole 3. My Aunt Patricia, who I speak to approximately twice a year, had called twice. My cousin Darnell had texted me 7 times, the last one just a row of red exclamation points. I sat up in the dark and called my father first. He answered before the first ring finished. Wren. His voice was wrong, too high, too fast. In the background, I heard shouting in what I thought was Indonesian, and underneath it, my mother, crying in the specific way she cries when she's convinced something is unfixable. Dad, what happened? Is everyone okay physically? We need you to stay calm. That sentence, that specific sentence. I have heard it my entire life, and it has never once preceded good news. Tell me what happened, the resort. He exhaled. There's been a situation with the resort. The story came out in fragments, interrupted by my mother grabbing the phone and then my father taking it back. What I eventually pieced together was this. Cole and Simone had booked a private villa package at a resort outside Ubud. The total cost was somewhere around $38,000 for the week. Venue, catering, accommodation for the immediate family, ceremony coordination. They had told my parents the groom's family was contributing significantly. They had told my parents that Cole had savings. Neither of these things was entirely true. Cole had put down a deposit using a combination of his own credit cards, a personal loan. And this is the part where I went very still. A line of credit that had been opened 3 months earlier. My mother's voice came through the phone, thin and defensive. We didn't think you'd mind, sweetheart. You never use it. You're always saying your credit is just sitting there doing nothing. Mom, stop talking. What line of credit? Silence. Whose name is on it? More silence. Then my father. It's in your name, Wren. Just temporarily. We were going to transfer it. Cole was going to pay it back before you ever saw the statement. I got out of bed. I don't remember deciding to do it. I was just suddenly standing, pacing the 4 feet between my bed and my window, staring at the parking lot below because I needed something static to look at. How much? The credit line is $14,000. But that's not the main problem right now. My father's voice dropped. The resort is holding them. Cole and Simone and your mother and I, we're all here. And the resort manager says there's a balance outstanding on the room charges. The family suite package wasn't fully covered. There's about $18,000 still owed, and they're saying they won't let us leave until it's settled. They can't hold you. That's not how that works. Wren, they have our passports. They took them at check-in. Standard procedure, they said, for international guests. And they are not giving them back until the account is settled. They've called the local authorities. There's a man here, some kind of tourism police, and he's saying if we don't resolve it by morning, they'll file a formal complaint and it becomes a legal matter and we could be looking at a hold on travel documents for weeks. I sat down on the edge of my bed. The parking lot lights were pale orange. A cat was picking through the dumpster below my window. I watched it the way you watch something ordinary when your brain is trying to stay anchored. Wire us the money, Wren. Just 18,000. We'll pay you back the moment we land. You opened a credit line in my name, I said. My voice came out very flat. Without telling me, without asking me. We knew you'd say no. So we did what we had to do for the family. My mother again, louder now, the defensiveness sharpening into something harder. Cole is your brother. This is his wedding. You couldn't even be bothered to come. The least you can do, stop. I said it quietly, but she stopped. I need you to stop talking for 1 second. I pulled the phone from my ear and put it on speaker. I turned on my laptop. My hands were steady in the way that hands sometimes get very steady when your mind is in crisis mode and your body decides to just cooperate. I logged into my credit monitoring account. I used a service that sent alerts, and I saw immediately that I had 3 notifications I had dismissed as routine over the past 90 days. The first was a hard inquiry on my credit from a lender I didn't recognize, dated March 14th. The second was a new account alert, a personal line of credit for $14,000 opened March 19th. The third was a change of address flag, dated the same week, updating the mailing address on the account to my parents' house in Phoenix. They had opened the account. They had rerouted the statements so I would never see them. They had used my social security number, my credit history, my name, and they had done it without a moment of hesitation because in their minds my good credit was a family resource. I looked at the account details. The IP address associated with the application was traced to a Phoenix zip code. My parents' neighborhood. Wren, are you doing it? Are you pulling up the wire information? My father's voice came through the speaker, thin and tinny. I'm looking at something, I said. We don't have time. The manager comes back at 6. It's already 4:30 here. You applied for this credit line from your house, I said, in Phoenix, using my information. A pause. It was for the family. That is identity theft, Dad. Don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being a person who just found out her parents committed a federal crime using her social security number. I kept my voice level. I had spent years learning to keep my voice level in rooms where people were in crisis. This was just another crisis. I need to ask you something and I need you to answer me honestly. Is my signature on any document at that resort? Silence again. Longer this time. Dad. The reservation confirmation has your name as the billing guarantor. He said it fast, like speed would cushion the landing. Just as a backup. Cole is the primary. I am the billing guarantor on a $38,000 resort reservation that I did not agree to. I closed my eyes for 3 seconds, opened them. And you want me to wire $18,000 to settle a debt that is legally in my name? To save your brother, yes. To save all of us. I understood the trap then, completely, the way you sometimes understand things all at once when the pattern finally becomes visible. If I wired the money, I was acknowledging the debt. I was accepting responsibility for the reservation. I was covering up the fraudulent credit line. I was, in effect, signing off on everything they had done and handing them exactly the outcome they'd designed. I would be $18,000 poorer, with $14,000 in fraudulent debt on my credit, and they would fly home and tell the story of how Wren came through for the family at the last minute. Again, and if I didn't wire the money, they had made sure my name was on the documents. They were counting on my fear of the credit damage, the legal entanglement, the scandal. What they forgot, or maybe never knew, because they had never needed to think about it, was that I understood how fraud cases worked. I had a co-worker who'd had her identity stolen by an ex-boyfriend 2 years earlier. I had sat with her through the process. I knew what the first call needed to be, and it was not to a wire transfer service. Put the resort manager on the phone, I said. What? My father's voice spiked. Why? Wren, just wire the put him on the phone or I'm hanging up right now and you get nothing. There was a shuffling sound, voices in the background. Then a new voice, accented, professional, clearly exhausted. Hello, this is the reservations manager. I am speaking with Miss Wren. Yes, my name is Wren Calloway. I'm calling from Portland, Oregon. I want to be very clear with you. I did not make this reservation. I did not authorize the use of my name or my credit information on any documents associated with this booking. I am currently in the United States. I have never been to Bali, and I am about to contact my bank's fraud division and the Federal Trade Commission to report that my identity was used without my consent to secure this reservation. A pause on his end. I see. The individuals in your facility, my family members, are responsible for whatever charges are outstanding. That is between you and them. I am not the billing guarantor. I did not agree to that designation. Whatever document has my name on it was signed or submitted without my knowledge. Wren. My father's voice, somewhere behind the manager. Wren, do not do this. Do you understand what you're doing to us? I'm telling the truth, Dad. They'll arrest Cole. They'll keep us here. That's a consequence of what you did, not of what I'm doing. The manager spoke again, measured now, the exhaustion replaced by something more formal. Miss Calloway, if you are representing that the authorization was fraudulent, we will need to proceed accordingly. We will contact local authorities to clarify the situation with the individuals present. I understand. Thank you. I'm also going to email you documentation of my US address and recent activity to confirm I was not party to this booking. Can I get your direct email? He gave it to me. My father was saying something I had stopped processing. My mother had started crying again, the real kind this time, not the performance. This was the sound of someone who had genuinely not believed things would go this far. I hung up with the manager and immediately called my bank. The fraud line is 24 hours. I had the number in my contacts because I'm the kind of person who has that number in her contacts. I reported the unauthorized credit line. I provided the account number, the origination date, the Phoenix IP address. I flagged the billing guarantor designation on the resort reservation. I was on the phone for 53 minutes and I was transferred twice and I had to repeat my social security number and date of birth 7 times and I did all of it without crying, which I was somewhat proud of at the time and less proud of later when I realized it was probably just shock. After the bank call, I filed a preliminary report with the FTC's identity theft portal. I froze my credit at all 3 bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and set up fraud alerts. I documented everything in a folder on my laptop, time-stamped. By the time I finished, it was past 4 in the morning in Portland, 6 in the evening in Bali. My phone had accumulated another 31 messages in the time I'd been on with the bank. My aunt, my cousin, 2 of Cole's college friends who apparently had my number, a text from Simone that said simply, "How could you do this on my wedding day?" I read that one twice. Then I put my phone face down on the nightstand. I want to tell you I felt righteous. I want to tell you it felt like freedom the moment I made those calls. The truth is messier. What I actually felt, sitting on the edge of my bed at 4:15 in the morning in Portland, was something closer to grief. Not regret. I was clear even then that I had done the right thing, but grief, yes. Because I'd spent 31 years loving a version of my family that, in the cold light of this particular morning, I had to admit had never quite existed. The version where they saw me as a person and not a resource. The version where my brother would have called me before this happened and said, "Wren, I need help, can we figure this out together?" That version had never showed up. I had just kept waiting for it. I blocked my father's number first, then my mother's, then Cole's, then Simone's, even though some part of me still felt bad about Simone because she was new to all of this and maybe didn't fully understand what she'd married into. Then my aunt. Then my cousin Darnell, who had texted me 8 times calling me selfish. Then the college friends. I went through my contacts methodically, the way I prepare a medication tray, one at a time, double-checking, making sure nothing was missed. The silence was immediate and total. I had not realized how much ambient noise a family makes until the moment they go quiet. I went to the kitchen and made tea. I don't drink coffee at 4 in the morning. I've learned that lesson the hard way after night shifts. I made chamomile and I stood at the kitchen counter and drank it looking at the parking lot, where the cat was still working the dumpster with the focused patience of someone who had nowhere else to be. Here is what happened in the weeks after. I know people in the comments always want the resolution spelled out, so I'll be specific. The resort, once it became clear the billing authorization was fraudulent, released my family's passports and allowed them to leave. But only after Cole signed a new agreement accepting personal liability for the outstanding balance. He is currently on a payment plan. The legal exposure for the fraudulent credit line is ongoing. My bank's fraud team confirmed the unauthorized account will be removed from my credit. It won't affect my score permanently, but the process took 4 months and required documentation I had to request from 3 different agencies. My father called me from a new number 6 weeks later. I let it go to voicemail. He said he was sorry. He said he knew he had crossed a line. He said he hoped I understood they had been desperate and that desperate people do things they wouldn't otherwise do. He said he loved me. I listened to the message twice and then I archived it without responding. My mother sent a card, an actual physical card which I found almost impressive in its old-fashionedness, that said she missed me and that the family wasn't the same without me. She had included, tucked inside, a check for $300, which I think was meant as a gesture and which I sent back uncashed. Cole has not contacted me directly. Simone sent me a DM on Instagram 3 months after the wedding. It was long. It said she hadn't known about the credit line. It said she was horrified when she found out. It said she understood if I needed space, but she hoped one day I would give Cole a chance to explain. I read it. I didn't respond. I don't know if she was telling the truth about not knowing. I don't know if it matters. What I know is this. I have a credit score of 794 now. It went up 4 points during this whole thing, which is the kind of absurd detail that only happens in real life. I have my emergency fund intact. I have my apartment, which is small and quiet and entirely mine. I have a job I'm good at and colleagues I trust, and a life that I built by deciding over and over again that I was worth protecting. People ask me if I regret blocking them, not blocking them during the crisis. People understand that part. They ask if I regret keeping them blocked. They ask if I miss my family. I thought about that question a lot. Here's what I've come to. I miss the family I thought I had. I miss the version of my brother who would never have let this happen. I miss my mother's cooking and my father's stupid jokes and the particular chaos of being around people who are genuinely alive in the world for better and worse. I miss those things. I don't miss the 4 a.m. phone calls. I don't miss the quiet understanding that my stability was always going to be the first thing sacrificed when someone else's dreams got too expensive. Those are two different things, and learning to tell them apart. Learning to grieve the family you wanted without going back to the family you had. That's the part nobody puts in the headline. The chamomile had gone cold by the time I finished it. I rinsed the mug, set it on the drying rack, and went back to bed. I had a 6 a.m. shift. I set my alarm for 5:15, turned off the light, and lay in the dark, listening to the nothing. It was the loudest quiet I had ever heard. And slowly, in a way I hadn't expected, it started to sound like something I could learn to live inside. I've thought a lot about what actually went wrong in my family. Not the Bali trick specifically, not the credit line or the forged billing authorization, but the thing underneath all of it that made those actions possible. And what I keep coming back to is this: they never believed there would be a cost. Not really. Every time I had fixed things before, the overdraft, the mortgage shortfall, the bail money for my cousin, I had taught them, without meaning to, that the cost of their decisions would always land somewhere else, on me. And because I kept absorbing it, they stopped being able to see it as a cost at all. My stability became, in their minds, a shared resource, something the family owned collectively. That's not malice. It's just what happens when consequences don't follow actions for long enough. The lesson stops existing. What I did that morning, calling the resort manager or calling my bank, filing the FTC report, wasn't revenge. I want to be clear about that because I think people sometimes hear this kind of story and assume the person telling it was fueled by anger. I wasn't angry, not in the hot way. I was just finally willing to let the consequence exist, to stop catching it before it landed. Cole made choices. My parents made choices. And for the first time in my adult life, I let those choices belong entirely to them. There's something uncomfortable in admitting that I had a role in building the dynamic that made this possible. Not the fraud that was their doing completely, but the years of bailing them out, the wire transfers, the quiet agreements to never make things difficult. I participated in that. I told myself it was love, and part of it was, but part of it was also fear. Fear of being the one who let the family fall. Fear of being called selfish. Fear of the silence that would follow if I said no and meant it. I had been managing that fear for so long that I had stopped noticing it was fear at all. I had just called it being responsible. Wren, the responsible one. Wren, who always figures it out. That identity had been handed to me so early I couldn't remember choosing it. And the thing about identities you didn't choose is that they're very hard to put down, because the moment you try, everyone around you acts like you've done something wrong. The morning I blocked my family's numbers, I felt the weight of that expectation lift. Not cleanly, not all at once, but I felt it. And in the weeks that followed, I had to sit with the grief of it, the real grief, the kind that doesn't go away just because you made the right call. I missed my brother. I missed my mother's voice. I missed the version of my family that existed in my head, the one where this never could have happened. Letting go of that version hurt more than the fraud did. But here's what I know now, on the other side of it. Integrity isn't the absence of hard choices. It's the willingness to make them even when the cost is real and personal and lands on you. Cole is paying his own debt now. My credit is intact. My apartment is quiet. And I am, for the first time in a very long time, nobody's safety net but my own. That's worth something. It cost a lot, but it's worth something.